We have no other time, not a minute, to do Wend Wellness today, and that's why we're doing it on our way to the Met game. So it's almost start time! Get ready to go. I'm not looking at you, I'm looking at the road. Gotta be safe. How you guys doing today? Happy Wend Wellness Nerd Out time. And what I want to talk about is the effects of sugar on the brain, at least a few of them. Here are a few reasons you shouldn't have things with added sugar. You shouldn't have processed foods. You shouldn't have all that crap. Okay? 1, phone down. 2, how you doing, hot since April? What's up, brother? For real though, we have damage to blood vessel walls. We have glycation or coating of sugar, we could say. I'm sure you've heard of glycated hemoglobin in diabetics, right? That hemoglobin that finds oxygen in red blood cells becomes glycated and less effective, right? Surrounded by sugar. Now, we have damage to these blood vessel walls, so we have restricted blood flow to the brain. And that's obviously a massive issue for so many different reasons. Not to mention, it actually shrinks your brain, does sugar. Having a lot of sugar, yes, will shrink your brain, and it reduces memory, and you have greater cognitive decline, all right? So it reduces cognition overall. They've done studies in people that consume a lot of sugar as opposed to people that eat diets rich in whole foods and all natural, healthy things, or a ketogenic diet, for example, in comparison. And they have a lot worse memory, verbal recall, things like that. Simple things, reading 20 words off of a list, they can only remember a quarter of what the other group had read. That's a reference study to examine. I think it's an NCBI study. And that was over the course of 3 months. Again, one group had the Mediterranean diet, the other had a diet high in processed foods, high in added sugars and things like that. They're pretty much able to eat all the crap they wanted. So it makes you dumber. Absolutely. Now, people with type 2 diabetes are at a greater risk for developing dementia, right? So, why do we get this correlation? Why do we get this correlation between sugar intake and cognitive decline and dementia and neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's disease? Let's give an example here. Beta amyloid protein builds up in the brain. Naturally, your body is able to degrade it, right? And intermittent fasting actually promotes autophagy, not only degrading old dysfunctional neurons and dysfunctional mitochondria, the energy powerhouse of the cell, replacing them with new functional mitochondria and new neurons, right? It's one of the great things of fasting, aside from many other benefits like improved insulin sensitivity, reducing inflammation, more brain-derived neurotrophic factor, more growth hormone, testosterone, blah, 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 right? But what happens when you have all this sugar is these amyloid plaques get stickier. They literally get stickier from all the excess sugar, and they get stuck to your brain. So now you can't get them out. Your brain cannot remove these amyloid plaques. They're finding Alzheimer's is more environmentally caused and related than they've ever found. I mean, they've always said, oh, genetics, you're at an increased risk, 25, 50% increased risk. It's almost all environment. And you can be at a predisposed risk, right? A greater risk for developing Alzheimer's, for example. But excessive sugar intake is just a terrible thing. Not to mention it's going to make you hungrier and thirstier, could damage the kidneys. I mean, you talk about glycation too of the afferent arterioles, right? Afferent arterioles, and it's not a good thing, right? So more crud in the blood, as they say with diabetes, for example, is just a terrible thing. Whether it means losing your foot, vision problems. We said those little blood vessels now, large and small alike, but thank you guys for tuning in. We'll get to you in a second here. When we got a red light, so we can look at you for a second. So when we have these blood vessels now, the walls are damaged, and the edges of the blood vessels, they're all coated with all this sugar and crap. It can affect things like vision. You get vision loss at a younger age, right? So it's not just memory. It's not just risk for neurodegenerative disease. It's not just vision. It's not just greater chances of losing a foot, you know, because you can't get blood to your feet anymore. More prone to infection, and infections. Love sugar. Love sugar. Love to eat sugar, right? And, you know, wouldn't be surprised if it's putting you at a greater risk for developing certain cancers as well, right? It's the feed off of something. So, you know, that. Now, when we talk about metabolism with excessive sugar intake, you're having a lot of simple carbs and things like that. We know that complex carbs and carbs high in soluble fiber, like our dark leafy greens, our sweet potatoes, our brown rice, our steel-cut oats, are great. They feed the gut bacteria. They improve brain function, right? Producing short-chain fatty acids. We talked about it yesterday, like butyric acid, which is involved in serotonin regulation in the brain, right? Over 90% of the serotonin is actually produced in the gut. That's our happy hormone / neurotransmitter, right? Which is pretty much just a hormone that acts more locally, you know, in shorter distance as a neurotransmitter. So, fun fact. So when we talk about metabolism, whatever you eat, your liver's going to make the opposite, okay? Our metabolism powerhouse. So you're our filter powerhouse. So what if you eat a lot of carbs? You're not eating fat, but your liver's making fat. So now let's think about not just you getting fat by eating a lot of sugar, and conversely, you look at bodybuilders, they have a ketogenic diet and they fast, whatever. You know, eating a high healthy fat diet is not only great for the membranes of the neurons in your brain, making them more fluid-like and allowing subsurface, that's under the surface, neurotransmitter receptors to come to the surface and to bind ligands, or those little signals moving around, those little neurotransmitters that tell the cell to say, remember something, or learn something, or act on something, or acting in processing speed and executive function, right? Things like, you know, a wide range of things that neurotransmitters control. Mood, right? So healthy fats are not only great for that, but they promote the production of glucose in the liver, in sugar, instead of the production of fat, right? So we want to tell our liver to produce some glucose. We don't need to take as much in, right? Now, if you're taking in a lot of glucose, the liver's producing a lot of fat, that is obviously no bueno, right? It's no bueno in terms of looking good, but also now your cholesterol can really skyrocket. We always talk about red meat and all this stuff with cholesterol. There's no correlation between saturated fat intake and heart disease, albeit saturated fat and trans fat are not great for your neuronal membranes. They'll make them a little more rigid, right? We want those unsaturated fats. Those are our go-tos, which are generally liquid at room temperature, things like extra virgin olive oil. But there are other things that are not liquid that have unsaturated fat, like avocado or nuts and seeds and things like that, right? And we'd love to get some sources that also have protein. But guy almost killed me. Jesus Christ, cutting me off out here. This is New York. You know, when we talk about cholesterol, right? Now you're telling your liver to produce all this fat, and your cholesterol can go up too from eating a lot of sugar. You know, we don't really think of that correlation. Again, often people think it's what I eat is what's raising my cholesterol. One of the biggest problems is that people eat too much sugar and processed food. So that's what we got for you guys today. I hope you're having a great day. We're gonna go and we're gonna finish this ride to the Met game. Hot since '89. You already know. He's always here. What's up, Malcolm, my man? Sovgano, how you doing? Spence, what's going on? Crystal, AC Fit, PD Rum LA. Gotta look at the road. Every other person. D Sharon too. How you doing? The real Atrail. How you doing? El Joaquin, what's going on? And Ethan Broadman. Hey, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I hope you got something out of that. I hope you eat less sugar, less processed food. It's just not good for your brain. It makes you dumber. It's not good for your body. It's not good for your muscle growth. It's not good for aging. It's not good for about anything, right? So that is our simple message to you, and I hope you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day. One last thing I want to say. Well, Shane, what about stuff like erythritol, xylitol, aspartame, sucralose, sucrose, saccharin, all these artificial sweeteners. It has zero sugar in it. It has zero added sugars, but it has that. Is that okay? Here's the big